Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. You know we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful January the 8th, 2018 night. I said 18, Big C. It's 2019, Big C. How you good old boys doing down south?
Well, Charlton, I'm just getting in from behind the woodshed. I mean, I was out there talking with Clemson. Cause they had a little what you do behind the woodshed going on last night.
Yeah, I think I had some of it going on last night, too. I still thought we were living back in 2018, and so did Nick Saban, because he pulled out a quarterback that was trying to pass first instead of run first, and they built their whole legacy on being a run-first, pass-second team, but they bought into the hype and tried to keep up with the opposition, which was a lesser program, but congratulations, Clemson. All is fair in love and wars and NBA action happening all over this great country of ours. And the NFL is always fantastic, especially this time of year. But I do want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you and all the fleet of Cadillac cars. Big C, last night in Santa Clara, San Francisco, unfortunately, I think it was the first time the national championship game did not have a sellout. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you can always look at the attendance of games, but logistically, it's going to affect anything that happens, especially in these economic times that we have, Charlton.
Yeah.
And, who knows how many people were affected by the government shutdown.
Yeah.
That may have gone to this game, Charlton, but elected not to because of shortness of resources.
Yeah.
And chose not to attend this game. But nevertheless, Charlton, the battle on the field was what it was all about. Two dynamic programs, Charlton,
yeah,
and two dynamic young quarterbacks. Different coaching mindsets, Charlton. You could see all the dynamics, playing out last night. The iconic Nick Saban that everyone figures they could not lose. But you're also looking at the young upstart Dabo Swinney, who now has 2 national titles before the age of 50.
Yeah.
So when you think about the landscape of college football changing, it's like a lot of the preponderance last night were saying, well, Tua's never lost a game. Well, Trevor Lawrence had never lost a game either, Charles.
Yeah.
So, he was on that same plane.
Yeah.
The thing that Alabama was faced with, and not a lot of people recognize going into this game, is that Dabo Swinney had the film from the prior week of what Alabama had problems with.
Yep.
And that was Kyler Murray throwing the football for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Oklahoma just happened to spot Alabama 28 points.
Yep.
But in the second half, as you had alluded to, Charlton, Oklahoma dominated Alabama in the second half a week ago down in the Orange Bowl in Miami.
Last 3 quarters, yep.
So when you think about what Oklahoma did to them, and you think about Alabama's performance in their last 7 quarters of football, Charlton, they just been dominated up and down. And when you think about Clemson, people say, well, they beat Alabama. They beat everybody in the tournament.
Yeah.
You got to realize in 2 games, Charlton, Clemson did not give up 20 points.
Wow.
They gave up 3 points to Notre Dame.
Yep.
They gave up 16 points to Alabama. They gave up 2 touchdowns in 2 games.
Yeah.
Now, and even if you go back a little farther, if you want to see the research that Dabo Swinney did in this game likens back a few years ago when Alabama played Ohio State and Cordell Stewart for the national championship.
Yeah.
If you think about Ohio State's offense, they had a dominant running back in Ezekiel Elliott.
Yep.
They had Cordell Stewart, who threw for 350 yards against that vaunted Alabama defense, several years ago, Charles.
Yeah.
And Ohio State won the national championship with Urban Meyer. Flash to this year, Charlton, 2019.
Yep.
If you look at the similarities in what Ohio State did against Alabama and what Oklahoma did against Alabama, Clemson took those 2 games, Charlton, wrapped it into one, and went out and dominated. They saw the weaknesses that Alabama represents.
Yeah.
They're a run-dominant team offensively and defensively, Charlton. They've had trouble all year long facing teams that could throw the ball.
Yeah.
And it really showed last night that Alabama, as good a team as they are, and they are a dominant team on the college football landscape.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
But Clemson has closed the gap, if not surpassed the gap, because everybody talked about Alabama's defense. They had one great defensive lineman, Charlton, Quentin Williams.
Yeah.
That's it. Clemson has 4. They only had 3 in this game because Lawrence had been suspended.
Yeah.
But they have 4 dominant defensive linemen, Charlton.
Yep.
That makes a difference wherever you go, even on the professional level. You got a dominant defensive line, you can win.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Big C, when I saw the game last night, I think the 2 things that came to mind, Alabama, for some reason, and Nick talked about it too. Again, this is why I think Las Vegas and sometimes you make more money by losing than you do by winning. I don't know, maybe that's cynical. But there was a play when you got Tua, who prior to losing this game, everybody said he was the next thing to Jesus Christ. They may have a similar cut of skin, but that 4th down where they tried a fake field goal with a slow guy that doesn't even get on the field. Why not?
Charlton, your lead blocker on that play was your kicker.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You're going to, on a 4th down and 6, your lead blocker is going to be your kicker?
Yeah.
Let's be realistic. You didn't fool anybody.
No, not at all. So, with that happening, Big C, that's one thing. Either punt the ball away. If you're going to go for it on 4th down, use your best player. It's a lot like going back in the day, Pete Carroll, USC, Texas at the Rose Bowl. 4th down, actually it was 3rd down and 2. They gave up the handoff to Linda White, who was tired and nearly fumbled going through the middle of the line. So on 4th and 1, Reggie Bush was on the sideline, and they give the ball to Linda White, who was stopped for not even a gain. So they turned the ball over to Texas. That was Pete Carroll being out coached. He went away for what got them there. Nick Saban also did the same thing with Tua on the goal line. That's why I'm thinking Las Vegas is a nice place to hang out sometime.
Well, Charlton, you think about this. They had 3 4th down plays.
Yeah.
Brandon Jacobs, it was their Wildcat running back, number 8.
Yep.
On neither one of those plays, Charlton, did he touch the ball.
Not at all.
Tua had the ball twice.
Yep.
On those plays and was stopped for losses.
Yep.
Then you try to run the 3rd string quarterback on the 3rd one. Brandon Jacobs made every one of those Wildcat 1st downs that he tried in the game last night, Charlton.
Yep.
And in those critical red zone situations, he wasn't the guy carrying the ball. And that's why I say Dabo Swinney has closed the gap as far as coaching. You know, everybody wants to give Nick Saban credit for what he's done in the past.
Yeah.
Yes, he's done that, Charlton. But as we talked about, the landscape of college football has changed because everybody's on television now, Charlton.
Yep.
Teams are going to have opportunities to play for a national championship. Clemson has built that legacy now under Dabo Swinney, is that this is the hot commodity now. Alabama will always have that legacy because you had Bear Bryant, now you have it built with Nick Saban.
Yeah.
But the landscape has changed because the young coaches, Charlton, who can identify more with the players. And people say, okay, Alabama, Clemson is boring. Well, I think everybody lines up, Charlton, for 12 games throughout the season to have the opportunity to knock them off.
Yeah.
Although Alabama's schedule came out today, Charlton, and they still have 3 1AA teams on their schedule. You know, they paid a little over $1 million to come in and get beat to keep Alabama undefeated. So they'll be back in that same position next year. But, you know, there was some talk in the newspapers that came out late that Alabama was really going to win the game.
Yeah.
Papers like USA Today had already had Alabama winning the game. I guess they'll have to come out with an article in tomorrow's paper. Saying Alabama went out behind the woodshed and didn't come back looking too pretty.
That's funny, Big Z. In all fair love and war, it just seemed like there's one thing of being out-coached, but a guy with Nick's experience, you don't get out-coached. It's as if they're setting up for, what was that, those guys that fought down in Vegas? It was Mayweather and the guy that cusses a lot, that guy from the Irish guy that cusses. McGregor. Those 2 guys, it's like they set it up for another one. But people, it just seemed like Nick didn't try to even win this game. That's my opinion. I know people say that's cynical, but there are times when I don't see anyone. It'd be like Belichick saying we got a 4th down and we need to get 6 yards. Okay, instead of having Brady pass the ball, who is hot in the game, let's give it to some guy who only sees the field maybe 4 or 5 times the entire game and have him run 6 yards. Doesn't make any sense, but I know all's fair in love and war.
Well, I mean, look at it from this perspective, Charlton. Everybody knocked Notre Dame when they came into this tournament.
Yeah.
They didn't have a conference championship game they had to play in.
Yep.
And Clemson throttled them. They dominated. Like I said, gave up 3 points. Then you look at Clemson a week later, they do this identical thing to Alabama.
Yeah.
And so you really have to raise your hat to Clemson in this scenario. When you think about in the last 4 years, Charlton, there have been 12 of these playoff games played.
Yeah.
Alabama and Clemson has played in 11 of them.
Yeah.
Okay? So everybody who's been in the tournament has had an opportunity to play these teams.
Yeah.
So I bring it down to that. When you get on the field, Charlton, regardless of coaching, it's the players who have to execute.
Yeah.
It's not Nick Saban executing on the field. It's not Dabo Swinney executing on the field. There are defensive coordinators who make adjustments in college and professional football, Charlton.
Yep.
These guys have game plans, and when you can adjust on the fly to what you're looking at, that's what Brett Venables did last night better than what Alabama's offensive coordinators was to do.
Yeah.
And maybe Alabama's offensive coordinator, Mike Locksley, had his mind on Maryland because he took the head coaching job at Maryland after the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
So he's torn between calling plays for Alabama as well as recruiting for Maryland.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you have a guy wearing 2 hats, Charlton, that is in 2 different cities, it's not always the most effective.
Yeah, I think that's very important, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. I want to bring up some comparisons to some of the other national championship games that we've seen over the years. But first, I want to thank Hilliard Guest, who's a writer, director, and producer, and he's part of a movie called The Full Circle. He does a great job in Hollywood, knows everybody from Denzel Washington to all of the famous people that have been names that are staples over the years. Halle Berry, Spike Lee, a lot of them sat down and spoke with him today. Also want to spoke with someone, Michael Lloyd, who knows everybody in Hollywood, been in the motion pictures and acting since he was actually 4 years old, had the honor of sitting down with him. And he was part of that genre of the Beach Boys, as well as Three Dog Nights, and a lot of other people that are part of Hollywood motion pictures and music. And then Anita Kendrick, who also is part of Northern California, helping people who are going through transition, whether it's children or the adults. I want to thank them for sitting down, and also Christina Kumar, who set it up and had a great time interviewing them here in Northern California. So thank you guys for your time. BC, I want to get back to the game. When you think about Saban, you think about Dabo Swinney, I think there was a gentleman, a former player, no, he was a current player, in the celebration, in the postgame. He did something that took about 15 seconds. He did a recruiting thing for Clemson. And he talked about people coming to Clemson. For all your recruits out there, listen up, come to Clemson, yada, yada, yada. I want to ask you, that's an advertisement for Clemson. But as a student athlete, is that illegal, Big C? Your thoughts?
It's not illegal, Charlton. When you think about when they bring in kids for trips and to view the campus on a recruiting trip, they give them a student athlete, Charlton, as a chaperone to carry them around.
Okay.
To introduce them around.
Yeah.
When you think about a student athlete making a pitch for its university, Charlton, it's not a paid advertisement. So he's not receiving any endorsement finances for saying that.
Yeah.
He's saying that because this is what he loves. This is what this university has done for him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody's going to advocate for their university. When you see alumni walking around, Charlton, they advocate for their university, and it's not illegal.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have financial ties to the university, Charlton, it's not an illegal recruitment.
That is something that I thought was a free plug, and it's nice that Dabo Swinney might give him some money coming from that, Big C. When you think about
if you remember that receiver number 8 last night.
Yes.
He was the offensive player at Alabama last year in high school.
Yeah.
Alabama wanted him. He took a recruiting trip to Clemson.
Yeah.
And stayed at Clemson, Charlton, because the coaching staff has such a turnover at Alabama. Alabama has been averaging losing 3 coaches a year, Charlton, for the last 5 years. So the turnover in the coaching staff, kids get recruited. They don't know if that coach is going to be there.
Right.
Dabo Swinney has lost 3 coaches in the last 5 years, Charlton.
Wow.
So if you're looking for security of a coach who say, hey, I'm going to take care of you if you come to our university, and players are become more prescient now, Charlton, and understanding of what the environment is.
Yep.
So they're listening to the sales pitch of the guy who is going to be there. If you say, okay, I've been at Clemson for the last 5 years.
Right.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm happy.
Yeah.
At Alabama, a coach can't make that claim. They lost their offense and defensive coordinator, Charlton, this year to head coaching jobs.
Yeah.
They lost those same 2 positions last year, Charlton, to head coaching jobs. They lost those positions the year before that, Charlton, to head coaching jobs. And the year before that. So the last 4 years, Charlton, Alabama's had to replace their offensive and defensive coordinators.
Wow.
So those kids that they recruited, when you think about that senior class in Alabama, Charlton, most likely half of those kids that were recruited, the coaches that recruited them, were gone.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, Big C, when the gentleman made that statement, Greenville, South Carolina, I've never been there. I know you've been all over the place in the South. Now, ironically, he made that pitch at Levi Stadium, which is in the backyard of Stanford University, and you can even say San Jose State and Cal Berkeley as well, which at some point in time, that's Pac-10 territory, Pac-12 territory now. That's where all the Pac-12 recruits should be paying attention to. For them to come out and recruit California, I think is genius. So why would someone go?
Think about Alabama. Jonah Williams, also an offensive tackle from California,
out of
the Bay Area. The running back, number 22. He's right there out of Folsom, California, somewhere in that area. And they had one other player that's a starter on Alabama. That's from the Bay Area, Charlton. You talk about programs making a pitch. You know, it's nice when you have the players make the pitch, Charlton, to come there because they're happy. But players also want to go where the opportunity to win and play is. That's the bottom line in any athletic program: basketball, baseball, track and field, swimming. You know, Stanford gets the top swimmers from around the world to come there and play. To come there and be on their swimming team. Because they're an elite swimming program, just like the University of Texas. When you look at football, Clemson gets them nationwide. Alabama gets them nationwide. Most of these schools, Charlton, regardless of where you are, even Texas, at Oklahoma, the teams that were in it, Notre Dame, they recruit nationally.
All over the place.
They don't recruit just in their backyard. They have tentacles of alumni all across the country. That's why these programs stay strong. When USC was in its heyday, Charlton, it recruited nationally from the East Coast. They always had players from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, playing at USC, Charlton. Coming all the way to the West Coast. The landscape has changed on college football, Charlton. The notoriety in college football is in the Southeast and in the Midwest. Those are the big-time programs. People on the West Coast, Charlton, have changed the dynamics of how football is viewed out there. So you look at a game on the West Coast and tell me, other than Oregon up at Oxford Stadium, when did you see a sellout at any game on the West Coast this year?
I think only Oregon and Washington. I don't even think USC had one. And I
don't believe Washington ever had a sellout, Charlton. I mean, you really have to look. And we're talking about small stadiums when you compare it to the South.
Right.
When you go to a place, LSU, 102,000. Ohio State, 105,000. Michigan, 114,000. Alabama, 102,000. You know, Texas A&M, 105,000. You know, in small stadiums in the South, Charlton, are 85 to 95,000.
Isn't that something?
Okay, that's it. So if you go on a... You had, who was it, Washington State playing for the Pac-12 title?
There was Washington and Utah.
35,000 people. They got that at a tailgate at a football game down in the South. They had that at a tailgate party. And when you look at the SEC, Charlton, all those teams have expanded or are in the process of expanding their stadiums. That's one of the things that go on in Southern football, Charlton. The expansion of the facilities, the upgrading of the facilities. Yet on the West Coast, Charlton, the expansion of a stadium on the West Coast, Charlton, is adding 5,000 seats. Okay? If you can get that. And you can't even fill those. Like I said, you're not seeing games other than Oregon on a consistent basis, Charlton, that sell out. Because there's nothing else to do in that town.
Well, you understand.
But when you look up and down the West Coast in the Pac-12, Charlton, of the major 5 conferences that are in that bowl carousel, I would guarantee you they had the least attendance of all of those Power 5 conferences.
I would say that's true. And Arizona State down in Tempe, they actually went from, I think, 75,000 to 56,000. They took some seats out of there, which I never thought that would never happen in the SEC, but that's part of the tradition of things that are going.
Even Missouri, who's a new entry into the SEC, Charlton,
and they added on.
Is expanding their stadium. They're adding 20,000 seats to their stadium.
Wow.
If you look at what Texas A&M did 2 years ago, Charlton,
yep.
they added 30,000 seats to their stadium. So this is what Southern football does. They expand. If you look at Oklahoma, suddenly they added 15,000 seats to their stadium, Charlton,
yep.
over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, Mississippi State did a stadium expansion. So these stadiums do that, and that's what draws kids. When you expand the stadium, that means that you improve the amenities. Oregon has the best amenities on the West Coast because of Uncle Phil Knight out there, Charles.
Yeah, well,
he's put everything into that program that you could. He built a basketball arena there at Oregon.
Yeah.
But when you look at USC, do they have an on-stadium campus, Charlton? You look at UCLA. Do they have an on-stadium campus?
No.
Those two premier programs on the West Coast have to travel to go play a home game, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's almost like a road game for a home game for those two premier West Coast programs.
Yep.
And so that's not very appealing when you're a West Coast kid and it's like, hey, I want to go play in front of a full house on national television.
Yep.
I'm going to get that in one of those programs.
Well, in speaking of these programs, too, give me your thoughts on national championship performance. No one can knock Nick Saban. You can't win everything. But he was out-coached, yes. Clemson played a better game last night. If they play it 10 times, they'd probably go 6-4 Alabama. But maybe 5-5 at the worst, but at least maybe 6-4 Alabama. I doubt if Clemson would win 6 out of 10 games against Alabama. But when you think about the great Tom Osborne, when he was coaching Nebraska to the national championship, they blew out Florida. I think it was 65-21, somewhere around there back in 95-96 game. And then even Pete Carroll, they blew out Oklahoma 55-19 in the Orange Bowl back in, I think it was 2006, I believe. Now, no, 2004 actually. Matt Leinart was quarterback. How would you rate those coaches' performances with what Dabo Swinney did last night with a 44-16 win? How they just outclassed the competition that was good enough to get to the championship game, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think Clemson took it easy on Alabama in this game, Charlton, because they had many opportunities. If you think about it, they didn't throw the ball in the fourth quarter, really. They ran the ball. They didn't try to run up the score because of the respect that Dabo Swinney has for Nick Saban.
Yeah.
He had him down, and even Nick Saban threw in the towel. He's like, hey, let me just get ready for next year.
Yeah.
You can see that in his emotion, or lack of emotions in the game.
Yeah.
He knew that he was outmanned in this game. And a lot of people, like I said, the legacy of Nick Saban does not excuse what happened last night, Charlton.
No.
They were dominated physically by Clemson. When you look at what Clemson's defensive line did, Charlton, they basically held that team in check.
Yep.
Those receivers for Alabama had been running free all year long, Charlton, versus everybody they had played.
Yeah.
Brent Venables is a genius on defense.
Yeah.
He doesn't take a head coaching job, Charlton, elsewhere because Clemson takes care of him financially, and he's happy.
Yep.
And he gets freedom. He doesn't have the pressure of a head coach, Charlton. He can make the money of a head coach without having the pressure.
Yeah. Well,
now, he's been in this situation before at another university, Charlton.
Yeah.
And had this situation. When he was at Texas, he had this situation. He was a defensive coordinator when Alabama beat him before down in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay? But now he's at Clemson. He has a better situation with these athletes. He has the same fishing pool that Alabama does as far as athletes. But one thing about universities, Charlton, athletes want to go to certain places where they develop a certain type of player. Clemson has been known for defensive linemen, Charlton, ever since Dabo Swinney has been there.
Yeah.
They've had number one picks year after year off their defensive line going to the NFL. Alabama's done the same thing. Dabo Swinney played at Alabama, so he knows the Alabama environment. He was a wide receiver there.
Yeah.
Nick Saban also wanted to keep him there as a head coach. He offered him a job on the staff. He's like, no, I can just learn from you.
Yeah.
And that's what he's done. He's took that education, Charles, and the pupil has taken it to the next level is what he's done.
Yep.
You know, everybody copies what Alabama does or try to copy what Alabama does. But the key in winning is that you have to have the athletes.
Yeah.
Without the athletes to execute your scheme, it's like when Dabo Swinney made the move at quarterback to put in Lawrence and take out Bryant after 4 games.
Yeah.
And he made the statement at that point. He said, I care about everybody, but my job here is to win.
Yeah.
He said, I try to keep all the players happy, but they're not always going to be happy.
That's impossible.
and so I have to put the team first in the best position to win.
Yeah.
And Trevor Lawrence proved that he was the best capable throwing quarterback on the team to execute the offense with the skill set that was around him, Charlton. When you have 2 potentially NFL receivers on the outside, you need a quarterback that can get the ball to him.
That's true.
You have a tight end that can also play in the next league, Charlton.
Yeah.
You have the best touchdown scoring running back on your team in the country, so you don't need a running quarterback.
Yep, that's true.
You needed a guy who can get the ball to the extremities, and that's what he did with Lawrence. When you look at Lawrence, Charlton, I compare him, and if you remember the movie Remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans, yeah.
Sunshine, the quarterback that was on there. He was a kid who came in. Rev was the quarterback.
Yep.
But Sunshine fit what Coach Boone was doing with his offense.
Yeah.
And he said, you're going to run the offense. You're going to learn it, and you're going to run it. And that's what this reminds me of. And it also reminds me, and a lot of people won't realize this until they go look at some old film.
Yeah.
He looks like a young Peyton Manning.
Yeah, he does.
Ironically, Trevor Lawrence looks like a young Peyton Manning. And Charlton, it would not, rattle me at all to say, in 10 years you'll be seeing the second Peyton Manning in the NFL.
Yeah.
This young man, Charlton, has all the assets that Peyton Manning had when he was a freshman in Tennessee.
Yeah.
He's unflappable, he's intelligent, and he's translated from the high school game to the college game, Charlton. And on the biggest stage, it wasn't too big. He happened to be the biggest guy there.
He did make that appearance. But let me ask you a question. Why would he go back to Clemson when there's money in the NFL, Bixby? Your thoughts?
It's called that 3-year rule, Charlton. He's 19 years old. You can't go before your 3rd year after high school. That's the reason why Dwayne Haskins is leaving Ohio State. He declared for the NFL draft today, Charlton, because he's a redshirt sophomore, which is 3 years removed from high school. The NFL has that early entry rule, Charlton, to protect itself as well as the young man developmentally.
Yeah.
The NFL doesn't really want minors playing in the league, Charlton.
Unlike the NBA.
Because you're in a grown man situation and you're going to be caught up in this.
Yeah.
So they don't want to have underage people in their league, Charlton.
Yep.
Because of the dynamics of it.
Yep.
It creates a lot of legal problems.
Yeah.
And so the NFL has set up that rule that you generally are going to be at least 21 years old when you get to their league and become a part of that union.
Yeah.
Which I like. And I wish that the NBA and Major League Baseball and hockey also adapted the same thing, Charlton. Because when you bring these 19-year-old kids in, make them multimillionaires, and say, okay, you're on your own.
Right.
A lot of them are.
That's a shame because everybody could learn from that. Give me your thoughts, though, because we're still in Pac-12 territory. When you have Texas Tech, they fired their coach, Cliff Kingsbury. He gets hired with the USC Trojans as the offensive coordinator. Until he couldn't really talk to anyone, he resigned and became the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. So he got fired by a university in Texas Tech, gets hired by USC. For some reason, they hired a guy who was fired as opposed to a guy that had ascended from a winning team. And then he goes to become the head coach at Arizona for the Cardinals, NFL. They also hired a guy that lost his job at Texas Tech. I don't know if the Rooney Rule has anything to do with anything, but they got rid of a coach after giving him 1 year to hire a guy that was fired. So 2 things. What does USC learn from that happening? And number 2, how does the NFL justify hiring a guy that was fired from college, based on your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of dynamics to this story, Charlton. When you think about Kingsbury being at Texas Tech, he was 35-40 as a head coach there.
Yep.
So he never had a winning record. His best year was 8-5.
Yeah.
And that was Patrick Mahomes last year there. He never won a Big 12 title, Charlton.
Yep.
And so It's the opportunities that people get. Now, you think about it. He never won more than 8 games in 1 year. Patrick Mahomes won 12 games in his first year as a starter in the
away
team.
From him, yeah.
So
yeah.
Eric Bieniemy must be a better, offensive coordinator than what, Cliff Kingsbury is.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you look at the dynamics of hiring and firing in the NFL, Charlton, the Rooney Rule, everybody knows is a farce.
Yeah.
Is that they can bring in a black assistant coach and say, hey, we're considering you for the head coaching position. Would you like to be in that interview? The interview pool.
Yeah.
That's an interview.
Yeah.
That technically qualifies as an interview. You don't have to bring him back in, but you ask him the questions. Or you ask him what was his take on the last season.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's an interview.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to say, okay, it's for the head coaching job. All management has to do is bring him in and talk to him. But this move with Cliff Kingsbury is that they're hoping that he can find a way to light a fire under Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
Who said 10 NFL teams would regret not drafting him.
Yeah, I remember that.
Even though he had the worst record of all the rookie quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, they fired the coach
But the problem in Arizona is not just the head coach, Charlton. This is a team that's devoid of a lot of talent.
Yeah.
That has been losing for a long time. It's hard to make winners out of losers. And I don't care who the coach is, Charlton. But Cliff Kingsbury, he's going to struggle in Arizona because that offense that he runs, the red gun offense, Charlton,
not for the NFL.
Doesn't always translate in the NFL.
No.
People have tried it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always translate. And then going to deal with grown men.
Yeah.
It's a little different than the high school kids that you bring into college.
That's true. Big C, what could, as a Southern guy, and I know you talked about the stadium size and how many stadiums sell out in the Pac-12 championship, actually did not have a sold out. I think they had about 20-some-odd thousand for the Pac-12 championship with Washington and Utah. Washington goes to the Rose Bowl. Of course, that game was sold out. But for the Pac-12 teams that saw the 2 national championship teams, in fact, Clemson and Alabama, they played in 11 of the 12 college football playoff games in the last, 4 years have been won by either Clemson or Alabama. That, happened last night. What could a Pac-12 coach learn? They were there. Are they looking for a certain kind of athlete? But they couldn't learn anything from Alabama last night. But is there anything that Clemson taught them? Because they seem to be holding on to the days that Pete Carroll was at USC and when Chip Kelly was up at Oregon. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about when Pete Carroll was hired at USC. Everybody mocked that hiring, Charlton, said, what is USC doing?
Yeah.
Okay? They brought in somebody who didn't think like the status quo.
Yeah.
But also, like I said, it's the dynamic of the kids in the South, Charlton, that's playing Southern football.
Yeah.
That's playing Northeastern football, Charlton. When you look at the dominance of those programs.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you look at the West Coast athlete, Charlton, is that they don't have a true leader. Who is the big-time coach in the West Coast? Who is the guy that moves the needle in the West Coast from the coaching dynamic, Charlton? There's nobody out there. I mean, if you say coaches on the West Coast, Charlton, Chris Peterson up in Washington is probably the biggest name of all the coaches on the West Coast.
Yeah.
I mean, Herm Edwards came into Arizona State and got as much fanfare as anyone out there, Charlton.
Yeah.
Mike Leach is an officer, is a guru at Washington State, but, I mean, it's just like when you talk about Helton, everybody's talking about firing him. Chip Kelly's fallen on hard times at his last 3 coaching jobs.
Yeah.
There's no stability on the West Coast, Charlton, as far as head coaches. There's nobody who's been at a university for 10 years that have built a program.
Yeah.
There's nobody that's been at a university in the West Coast for 5 years.
Wow.
That has built a program. That's what you have to look at. Has anybody on the West Coast really built a program over 5 years? Peterson came in, had a quick fix at Washington. 1 year. They got into the playoffs.
Yeah.
They've been on a downward slide ever since, Charlton.
Yeah.
You had a quarterback that hasn't gotten any better. What do they do in the Southeast, Charlton? When you looked at those 2 teams that played in the national championship last night, Charlton, when those quarterbacks had maximized their potential from a year ago, what did they do?
They found somebody
changed.
else. Yeah.
They changed quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Has Washington ever thought about changing quarterbacks? No, Charlton. Any program out there, Charlton, on the West Coast has not thought about changing quarterbacks. What did USC do? They went with a true freshman.
Yep.
They struggled. They were willing to let the program decline to say, okay, we're going to develop this kid.
Right.
Because he has potential.
Yeah.
You got to play the guy that can play now. Nick Saban, you think about it, Nick Saban in the last 4 seasons, last 3 seasons,
Yeah.
has had 4 starting quarterbacks.
Wow.
It's 4.
He was.
That's how many quarterbacks he's had in the last 4 seasons. 4 starting quarterbacks.
Yeah. Well, he wants to win now.
Jalen Hurts replaced the quarterback. Jalen Hurts got replaced.
Yeah.
Clemson, they've had 3 starting quarterbacks in the last 3 years. Deshaun Watson left. Brian got the job. Brian got replaced. If you're not progressing the program as an athlete, Charlton, you are replaced. They're not saying, well, he's got the potential and we're waiting for it to just kick out, just to start. This is how good programs stay good. They make competitors within their own program.
That's true.
I don't see that on the West Coast. They say, this guy was an all-state player, and, he just hasn't reached his potential. You don't hear that in the South. Alabama rotates 3 running backs in their offense.
Yeah.
Clemson rotates 3 running backs in their offense. That means that the next guy up is running harder than the guy that just came out, because he knows he has limited opportunity and he has to make the best of it, Charlton.
Yeah.
If you don't create competitors within your own program, Charlton, you're not going to be a great program. I'm not seeing that from any West Coast team, Charlton.
You know what's interesting? When you look at the quarterback last night for Clemson, you also look at Watson when he played there a couple of years ago and helped win a national championship game for Clemson. You also look at the quarterback at Tua out of Alabama. These guys have multi-dimensional quarterback. I guess you could call run play option, Big C. Pac-12 doesn't have that. The last guy they had that did that was Marcus Mariota, who ended up competing for the Heisman Trophy and national championship game. They lost that to Ohio State. But until they get that kind of quarterback, they're going for guys that look like Rosen. They're going for guys that look like Darnold. They have no athletic talent to run the ball outside of the pocket. The only drop, it's like they're looking for an Elway that can't run. And if they're going to learn anything, I think look at both quarterbacks that have been in the last 2 national championship winners. They had quarterbacks that were mobile, could throw on the run, as well as just being a drop-back passer. I think that's something they can learn. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry. Boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century, Big C. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league. When you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. So congratulations, Clemson. They did something that not a lot of people thought they could do, except for Nick Saban with some of those horrible play calls, Big C. Goodyear, that blimp will become an honorary member of the College Football Hall of Fame. I want to ask you why. It's going to be the first time a non-player or a coach will be inducted, Big C. Are they sipping on too much shine when they put blimps in, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, think about college football in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Who has been at all the big games? The Goodyear blimp.
That's them.
The Goodyear blimp, for decades, Charlton, was like Keith Jackson in college football.
Oh, Nelly.
If it was a big game, Keith Jackson was broadcasting that game, Charlton.
Yeah.
If it was a national game, he was there.
Yeah.
But wherever Keith Jackson was, Charlton, the Goodyear blimp was there also.
Yeah.
So when you think about something that's synonymous with college football, just like a 2-point conversion, a field goal, an extra point, onside kick, the Goodyear blimp is it, Charlton. It's brought us so many great highlights over the years, so many great stadium shots.
Yeah.
Those aerial views that you got from the Goodyear blimp, Charlton, this is a befitting, acceptance into the College Football Hall of Fame, putting in the Goodyear blimp.
Well, I know we've always seen it flying over above, especially at the Rose Bowl, seeing it on the granddaddy of them all and seeing that blimp. It really has been a staple of college football. Big C, speaking of a staple, I want to just transition to the NBA just briefly. I look at the NBA, how the NBA is amazing. They really haven't hit the stride until the Super Bowl is over, and then we're going to focus on NBA basketball exclusively because college basketball cannot compete with the NBA the way college football competes with the NFL. And, of course, baseball is going to start its thing in April. But NBA assist leaders, everybody wants to know who scores the most points in the game. How many points can James Harden get? When you look at the assist leaders, you have Westbrook of OKC averaging 10 assists a game. That's incredible for a guy that's known as someone who doesn't pass a lot. Lowry, Toronto, averaging 9.7. You have Wall out of Washington. That good old boy is averaging 8.7 assists a game. Harden, you wouldn't think that Harden would pass the ball at all. I think Harden could win the award for the assist that happened with 5 seconds left on the shot clock. That might be the most accurate for Harden, Big C. And when you look at the Holiday for New Orleans at 8.4 assists per game, Big C, give me your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, it's the unknown statistic in the NBA.
Yeah.
A lot of people think the guys who give out assists can't score. We know Russell over the last 2 seasons averaged a triple throughout the season. And he's on pace to do that again, Charlton, have his 3rd consecutive year in the NBA with a triple-double. He doesn't have to score as much now because he has Paul George on the team.
Yeah.
But when you talk about James Harden, everybody knows he's leading the NBA in scoring, Charlton.
Yep.
Not only that, he's number 4 in the NBA in assists. So not only does he put the ball in the basket by himself, Charlton, but he creates opportunities for teammates to score. And Kyle Lowry, in Toronto, it was that controversial trade, brought in Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
But they have the best team in the NBA, and he's number 2 in assists, Charlton.
Yeah.
Being on the best team in the NBA.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible sport. Once football is set up, we'll see how great the NBA really is. As far as tonight's game, we have Sacramento, Phoenix, we have New York at Golden State. Wouldn't that be great logistically if we could ever have the Knicks playing Golden State for the NBA Finals? Not going to happen this year. Indiana at Cleveland, Washington at Philadelphia. You have Denver at Miami, Atlanta at Toronto. You have Minnesota at OKC. Just a lot of great things happen in the world of the NBA, but it's going to be more magnified as we get back to what happens once the NFL crowns the champion for the Super Bowl. And speaking of the NFL, Big C, the NFL's regular season leader in tackles is from the Colts, Darius Leonard. 163 tackles. Also now a current playoff leader in tackles. He has 13. I know we talk about Darnold out of the Rams in LA, but when you have Darius Leonard, 163 tackles, leading tackles in the NFL for the playoffs, someone has to find a way to double team as much as possible. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is one of those young, dynamic linebackers out of the traditional black colleges, Charlton, that all the draft experts didn't have him going as high as he did.
No.
And they said, they could have gotten him in a lower round pick. But he's proven everybody wrong, Charlton, leading NFL in tackles with 163. Think about it. He only played 15 regular season games. He actually missed the game, Charlton. But he led the entire NFL in tackles.
Wow.
Something that no one as a rookie has ever done in a long time, and to play less games than the season schedule is, Charlton. He averaged 12 tackles a game throughout the season. No one gave him credit for that, Charlton.
No.
But, just a dynamic playmaker, Charlton. He's a beast on the field. He was a beast in college at South Carolina State. And, this shows that you don't have to be in a big-time college program that you see playing on Monday night for a national championship, Charlton, to be an impactful player in the NFL. So many small black college players, Charlton, have been great players in the NFL. You look at the NFL Hall of Fame, Charlton, there's over 25 of them from traditional black colleges, Charlton, in the NFL Hall of Fame. But nowadays, Charlton, the NFL has found a way to not make these players number 1 draft picks, get them at a lesser price, and pay the kids from the big-time universities that are not as productive. You think about the first linebacker taken in the draft, Charlton, Roquan Smith from the Chicago Bears. He was not as impactful as Darius Leonard, and the Bears are out of the playoffs.
Isn't that something? Out of the playoffs by a tipped field goal, but that's the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, Big C. Bruce Arians, I know we talked about how the coaching carousel happens, and if you are African American, once you have one job, you're not as likely to get a second opportunity in the league. I mean, I think it's Tubby Smith was able to get the Bears to the Super Bowl, their last Super Bowl. They fired him. He went to University of Illinois to coach. Arians doesn't even get the Cardinals to the Super Bowl down in Arizona, even though he had a Hall of Fame quarterback doing the football for him. And he gets a job after sitting out 1 year, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just give me your thoughts on, you get a team like the Bears to the Super Bowl, and the next job you get is as a college head coach. If you're Arians, you don't get your team to the Super Bowl, and you're out in Arizona. The next job, you're coaching again in the NFL. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, think about Jim Caldwell down in Detroit.
Yeah.
He was 9-7 a year ago.
Wow.
Got fired. He was replaced by Matt Patricia, who goes 6-9, I believe it was,
Yeah.
as the head coach. They weren't satisfied with the 9-7 record. And the only person to digress in that situation, Charlton, is the quarterback, Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
Well, when I look at Bruce Arians, you know, he said he resigned for health reasons in Arizona. He's going into Tampa Bay where they just got rid of Dirk Cutter.
Yeah.
He has an excellent quarterback in Jameis Winston. And they're thinking maybe he's the guy who can change around Jameis Winston. You know, he had
Carson Palmer in the Cardinals.
You know, Carson Palmer.
Yeah.
He brought him and revitalized his career after coming from the Raiders.
Yeah.
In the Arizona.
Yeah.
So maybe he can have that same type of effect in Tampa. When you look at the receiving core that they have, I mean, he had Fitzgerald and Brown in Arizona. He has a better receiving core going to Tampa Bay, Charlton, than what he had in Arizona.
Yeah.
So if he can bring together the missing pieces in Tampa, I mean, it might be the toughest division in the NFC when you think about you have New Orleans in that division. You have Atlanta in that division, and you have Carolina in that division, Charlton.
Yeah.
You have 3 quarterbacks in that division that have been All-Pro and MVPs in the NFL.
And been to Super Bowl.
So as a head coach, you got to really, you know, be careful about where you're taking a head coaching job in Tampa. Even though it's a head coaching job, Charlton, it might not be the best one.
Yeah, I would hope to see if Winston can put his head on his shoulder and realize that not a lot of NFL quarterbacks that get opportunities, especially African Americans, when you're a screw up. And I hope that he's learned. I mean, he's always had some issues with Florida State and then in the NFL with Tampa. But, you know, we're supposed to get more wise as we get older. Hopefully that will happen for him. Congratulations to Arians for getting that opportunity there. Matt LaFleur has been hired as head coach for the Green Bay Packers, former offensive coordinator for the Browns. And I still think about Aaron Rodgers is not going to listen to anybody. So Aaron wants to coach that team. When he's not doing State Farm commercials, he's getting people fired from his team that challenge him or that even question him. Big C, you can't have that kind of power if you're a quarterback that's on the backside of your career, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, I think when you hire a coordinator to come into Green Bay is that you're trying to get the rest of the pieces together. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, Aaron is Aaron. You got to get some personnel around it. The problem in Green Bay is because your quarterback is making so much money, Charlton.
No cap.
It's not going to allow you to spend the money on other skill positions.
Yeah.
You're going to have just a couple positions you play, Charlton. Then you got to be having minimum, you know, salary employees in those other positions.
Yeah.
That's what these owners are not understanding, Charlton. When you look at the young players, quarterbacks that made it to the NFL playoffs this year, Charlton, you had 6 of those guys who were under 25 years of age, under 26. And they weren't making a lot of money. So you look at that compared to the highest 6-paid quarterbacks, and your cousin was one of them in Minnesota.
You're not my cousin.
They didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so you think about it. That division in Green Bay has 3 of the 6 highest-paid quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
When you look at your cousin in Minnesota, you look at Aaron Rodgers, and you look at Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
All of those guys, Charlton, combined, did not win 20 games.
Yep.
3 of the top 6 highest-paid quarterbacks in the NFL did not win 20 games, and they're in that division.
Yeah.
So that's what you have to compete with there.
Yeah. That's funny that you mentioned that he's my cousin. My mama said, Why does Big C keep saying that boy is your cousin? She got to answer to a lot of people in church. I said, Mama, you know they drink that shine down south, Mama. But I got to tell you, Big C, when you look at the Eagles, they've been scrutinized at the trade deadline when they traded for Golden Tate, who has been a baller for the Eagles, Big C. Talk about a guy that can fly, really came from the Lions, who are not used to winning anything in Detroit. It's a shame a city that has such a history of competitive sports can't find a coach that they like because they had one in Colorado that left. But Golden Tate obviously has been, I think, the best pickup by the Eagles. Now, everyone wants to put a lot of thought on Carson Wentz, who was injured when he played at North Dakota State, didn't finish all his full career. He's been injured both years in the NFL, Big C, as a starting quarterback. But Golden Tate, if it were not for Golden Tate, there would be no Eagles playing this week, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, all those proponents on television and in talk radio are saying, you know, the Eagles gave away a 3rd-round pick for Golden Tate, who was on the downside of his career. You know, this is what Bill Belichick has said all the time, and even Al Davis.
Yeah.
And you go back to the Washington Redskins, Charlton, under Charlie Casserly, when he was their GM. I want a guy who can play now. George Allen started there with the Redskins. I'll trade away these draft picks for a guy who can play now. And everybody said, well, Golden Tate's numbers were down in Detroit. Matthew Stafford's numbers are down in Detroit. No one is saying that, he's on the downside of his career.
Did they make the playoffs?
He's a white guy making $130 million.
Did they make the playoffs in Detroit this year? Were they a playoff team, Big C, under Stafford?
Have they made the playoffs win, Charlton?
Yeah, I'm just making sure. Because I thought it was 2018 when I started the show. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Okay. But when you think about it, Golden State was their best receiver.
Yeah.
And he was toiling with a quarterback that they said, well, he's one of the best statistical quarterbacks in the NFL because he can never have his team playing from in front. They're always playing from behind.
That's
so Golden Tate, Charlton, goes and plays instant dividends. I mean, this is like the Amari Cooper trade with Dallas and the Raiders.
Yeah.
They said, well, he's not that productive in Oakland. Well, look at what Dallas Cowboys have been ever since they traded for Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Look at what the Philadelphia Eagles have done since they made the trade for Golden Tate.
Yeah.
Both of those teams are in the second round of the NFL playoffs.
Yeah.
Making trades for key African-American wide receivers, Charlton.
Yeah.
And those quarterbacks that they played with that are both making over $100 million are watching those key African-American wide receivers play this weekend, Charlton.
What a bargain. They wish they would have all played defensive back because instead. I can tell you, the four youngest quarterbacks in the league will face each other this weekend in the playoffs. Playoffs? Did somebody say playoffs? I love that. Good boy, they had that saying back in the day. But you think about it, Patrick Mahomes. Jim Mora, the great Jim Mora.
In Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. They're in the playoffs now for sure, Big C. But you have Patrick Mahomes, 23, Andrew Luck, 29, Jared Goff is 24, and Prescott's 25. They're all young. I mean, we're talking about people being maybe washed up as they're 30. And sometimes they say that players got to have a lot of experience. It seems like the guys without the experience, you don't have to relearn a habit. Mix of your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, when you think about it, we talked about that last week. 6 young quarterbacks starting in the playoffs in the NFL. It's been 2 have been eliminated, Charlton. We're down to 4.
Yeah.
But just think about that as far as the future of the league, where the league is going, Charlton. These young, dynamic quarterbacks still producing at this stage in the NFL, going out, having an opportunity to get their teams to the Super Bowl, Charlton.
Yeah.
Yet you got a lot of these older Grizzly guys, Charlton, that are making excessive amounts of money that people are making excuses for.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the NFL. You got a quarterback, Charlton, that's making over $100 million. They start making excuses for him.
Yeah.
Everybody is still saying about Dak Prescott, well, I don't know if I want to make him the franchise quarterback. I would question that. Giving Zach that kind of money.
Wow.
Dak Prescott has won 33 and lost 16 games since he's been the starting quarterback in the NFL.
Yep.
No one is saying anything about that, Charlton.
No.
No one is saying anything. Dak Prescott is 33 and 16.
Yep.
As a starting quarterback in his first 3 years in the NFL.
Amazing.
And when you think about those quarterbacks that you mentioned, Charlton, of these young quarterbacks, only Patrick Mahomes of those young quarterbacks has a better winning percentage, Charlton.
Yeah.
In his first year.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So as all of these experts around on all these networks that we see on television explaining these quarterbacks and who you got to have and who's going to be the future of a franchise and what he has to look like.
Yep.
Look at Dak Prescott. Looks pretty good from a perspective of winning ever since he's been in the NFL. 3 years, has never had a losing season.
All he does is win. Now let's look at their mentors, Big C, the guys that have been staples in the NFL over the years. You look at the 2 oldest quarterbacks in the playoffs will face each other this weekend. It's a shame that one of them is going to be eliminated because they're 2. I mean, the name speaks for itself, Tom Brady, of course, having Belichick as his coach. But Philip Rivers, 37, he's young. He's a young pup. What Tom Brady would give to be 37 again. Tom Brady's 41, which really is the new 51, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at this game, Charlton, the last time they met, it was in Foxborough, and Rivers was playing with a damaged knee that he had to have surgery on that next week, Charlton, going into that game. But it just shows the heart of an athlete. Philip Rivers is one of those guys who's a true teammate.
Yep.
He's a leader on and off the field. And this, Charlton, could potentially be his last stand as an opportunity, a potential opportunity to get to a Super Bowl.
Yep.
When you think about the job that Anthony Lynn has done in San Diego. Last year, Charlton, at the end of the season, they won 8 of their last 9 games.
Yeah.
And you look at the team this year, Charlton, they're right now, 13-4.
Yeah.
13-4 this year.
They're incredible.
So when you think about what Anthony Lynn has done, Charlton, 21-5 in his last 25 games.
Yeah.
26 games as a head coach. Phillip Rivers has been the architect.
Yeah.
Pulling the strings from the quarterback position.
Yep.
But, this is a tough situation. They went into Baltimore last week on the road, Charlton. Can they duplicate that one more time in Foxborough, where you always say there's some Foxborough magic?
Yeah, the tug rule.
Goes on.
It's not magic, Big C. It's called some good old boy favor. Do me a favor. I got you out of those parking tickets. Make that a first down. Make it not a first down, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a game, when you think about must-see TV for 2 great quarterbacks.
Yeah.
2 potential, and Brady's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see any reason why Rivers should not be in the Hall of Fame just based on the statistics, Charlton.
Yeah.
He's always found a tough pass. He's been in the same division that Roethlisberger, Brady has been in, guys who've gotten to the Super Bowl from that side. Manning, Charlton.
Yep.
These have been his competitors, keeping him out of the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And I don't know if you say, and Jim Plunkett has proven that just because you win a Super Bowl don't mean you're going to get in.
You can win 2. You can win 2.
And I think there's more quarterbacks in the NFL Hall of Fame, Charlton, that have not won Super Bowls than there are quarterbacks in that have won Super Bowls.
As you explained to me, if Broadway Joe, who had a losing NFL record, can get him to
not just a losing record, Charlton, 1 winning season.
1 winning
in the NFL.
season.
That's when they won the Super Bowl. 1 winning season. More interceptions than touchdowns in his whole career.
Wow. And he's in the Hall of Fame, and Plunkett has 2 Super Bowls.
Dan Fouts is in the Hall of Fame, Charles.
Yeah.
Sonny Jurgensen's in the Hall of Fame. He didn't win a Super Bowl with the Redskins.
Well, let me ask you, what's the difference in Plunkett and those other 3 guys you mentioned? I mean, they all have great numbers, Big C. They've all won a lot of games. Is there anything different that makes one get 2 Super Bowls? Oh, that's what's different. He has 2 Super Bowls. Anything else that might be different, Big C, you thought?
Well, Charlton, I guess because he's a minority quarterback.
Oh, okay.
That's not a criterion for being in the NFL Hall of Fame. Even though we have Warren Moon in there, Charlton.
Yeah.
But it's not a criteria to be a winner and be in there. Because every time they use that story about Eli Manning, well, he has 2 Super Bowls, championships. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well, the staple mark, Jim Plunkett has 2.
Yeah.
Kurt Warner has 1. Joe Theismann has 1.
Yeah.
There's plenty of other quarterbacks that have 1 championship. Joe Namath has 1.
Yeah.
Dan Fouts has none.
Wow, that's incredible. So that's incredible.
We can go up and down that list of guys who don't have Super Bowl championships, Charlton, that are in the Hall of Fame at quarterback.
Wow.
Jim Plunkett has a Heisman Trophy in college, Charlton. He has 2 Super Bowl championships in the NFL, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. And the only way he can get elected to the Hall of Fame, Charlton, is by the Veterans Committee.
Wow.
Because his time as far as being voted in by the selection committee is over.
I would love someone to explain that. Although Martin Luther King fought for our civil rights over 50 years ago, Big C, 50 years ago, society still isn't fair, seems to be more biased than ever, and that's in mainstream. And then when we say how it even correlates over to the NFL, give that man a gold jacket and one that he can have on while he's still young and healthy. Big C, when we look at our final segment today on Big C Sports Show, the Cowboys, how about them Cowboys, Big C? I love Jimmy Johnson. They should put that in a voiceover. How about them Cowboys when they open the doors down at Texas Stadium, the great Jimmy Johnson? The Cowboys, if they win Saturday, they won over the Seattle Seahawks. If they win in L.A., they're 1 more game away from another Super Bowl. But they have 35 postseason wins. That's only second most to the all-time mark set by the Pittsburgh Steelers, who've only had 3 head coaches in their history. I don't know if people understand that is such a remarkable feat, Big C, because Dallas is America's team, according to people down in Texas. But numbers don't lie. Second all-time in postseason wins. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's been a more progressive program over the years than what the Steelers. You think about when the Cowboys started participating in Super Bowls, Charlton, that they lost their first one to the Colts. I believe it was Super Bowl 4 that they lost. So they've been in the postseason for decades. This is a franchise, even when it was down, Charlton, always had the fanfare.
Yeah.
But you think about it. If they could break the Pittsburgh Steelers' all-time postseason win record, they would do it with an African-American quarterback, Charlton, that everybody says is not a franchise quarterback.
Isn't that incredible? And like Don King said, only in America, speaking of Don King, Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, you know, today, Charlton, Mike Mayock, the new general manager of the Oakland Raiders, officially announced himself as being a flunky and a puppet.
Wow.
He said that John Gruden will have final decision over all personnel moves.
Oh, he just learned that today?
I'm just Pinocchio.
Wow. Yeah, speaking of learning things today, you can learn every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, where you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.